Hey folks, this is Judd, and I am daydreaming about dragons. Once again, I want to talk about what the players want, right? Their desires. That's a big deal. And a friend of mine, Andrew, a brother librarian out in the trenches, brought it up that it's a big deal how to deal with what your players want. And I remember my first visceral lesson about that. I was about 13 years old, and my friend Jim, who mentored me into my first DMing ever when I was very young, was making his character, and it was kind of a gonzo. Looking back on it, it was kind of a strange character. I vividly remember it though. I'm 13 years old. 30 years ago, I remember it. It was a character with a lion's head, and it was an albino lion, and he kind of dressed as a swashbuckler. I think it was named Leo Dororinsky, and I could have found that really goofy. I took it seriously, and I remember we were talking about the character, and I was asking him questions because that's something apparently I did, and I don't know where I learned to do that, but that was an important thing because I feel like with the tools we had at the time, there weren't a lot of ways to communicate what was going on in the background or what we wanted. So we would have these intense, huddled discussions about character background. And he mentioned that he was in love with this princess and she was lost to him, maybe got kidnapped or something. And I think he was trying to give a young DM a foothold, something to get into. And he was going to see if I was going to grab it. And we played an adventure, and the princess didn't really come up. But some reason occurred to me that it would be really complicated to get what you wanted in that situation. It would be really complicated to live with live an adventurous life with this princess with you. And maybe, I know Jim was involved in a lot of complicated romantic relationships at the time, so maybe I was watching him, and that was kind of what brought it on. My parents were recently divorced, so maybe I was thinking about that. But what I did, because I knew nothing about romantic relationships at that time, right? I was a 13-year-old kid. I knew nothing. And what I did is I gave him what he wanted. In a later game, not too long after that, the princess showed up and had escaped her captivity and was very happy to see Leo and very happy to live a very complicated life of adventure with him. And it was kind of cool. They kind of were partners. Take a sip of coffee. And I think it's an interesting lesson, right? What do the players want? And what do you use to get in their way, right? The players want the treasure at the bottom of the tomb. Cool. The tomb is the tomb of an ancient knight. The knight is said to have had a sword. We want to go in, get the sword. If their old rusted armor is there, we're going to pry the gems out of it. We're going to get out of there. Okay? So in that case, you don't want to give them what they want, right? That's not too interesting. But so what are the tools you use to get in their way? Well, there's the dungeon, right? There's the world, the verisimilitude of the world. You don't want to just hand them everything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's an interesting world. Giving the players what they want can be interesting. And especially if you give it what they want with a twist or with a caveat, with something there. I'm not the knights, the treasure at the bottom of the tomb is not really a great example, right? Because we want an adventure. We want to go we want that experience of going into the tomb, overcoming the challenges, dealing with it, and getting back out with the treasure. Otherwise, it's meaningless. If you just pop open a casket and there's the knight's sword, and you take it out, and the villager's like, yeah, we don't know why we didn't think of that. That's not so interesting. At that point, you want challenges. So there's got to be a way to think about and categorize different things the players want and what you can do as hurdles to get in their way. Because the hurdles and the overcoming of the hurdles is what makes a hero. And so the things I want you to look out for is, when is it that the players want more responsibility, right? When is it a mo money, mo problems type of situation that could make for a great adventure? I ran a Burning Wheel game where the premise of the game was that the players were coming into town with a dragon's hoard of gold in their back cart, right? The adventure wasn't about, and I pre-gen the characters. It was a con game, right? So the adventure wasn't about, defending the cart against bandits. That wasn't so interesting to me. What's interesting to me is, what do you do when you have a bunch of outcast characters who suddenly have obscene amounts of money, but all of the social problems that are in their way, right? You've got a thief who's on the outs with the guild. You've got a priest who's a heretic. You've got a knight who's the bastard of the local lord. All of these problems. Can money buy your way out? It's still going to be complicated. It's still going to be an adventure. And that's what I want. Your player wants to be king. He's in line for the throne. The king is a rival. What happens if the king just gets sick and brings that person in and says, listen, I can spend the last year of my life fighting you, or I can get you ready to be king. Because there's a lot to be done. And it's going to be complicated. Sometimes it's interesting to just throw a total curveball in there and say, okay, you want responsibility? Here you go. Here it is. Now what? Now what? You want the power to change the world? Now what do you do? And it doesn't have to be the end of their adventure in life. But the king doesn't go on adventures. Well, I'm changing things. I do. Right? Daenerys Targaryen is a good example of that. She just burns her way through stuff. People tell her she can't do something, she does it. So let them know that, hey, I know kings don't traditionally go on adventures, so don't be a traditional king. Look for the things they want that will lead to more adventures. Look for the things they want that will make the adventures that they're having more interesting. And also, of course, take into account the world and the consequences of their actions and the way things will go. But be careful about, when you hear yourself talking about realism, be really careful, because it means that you're digging your heels in for a reason. And it usually isn't because of realism. Because if you look in history, if you talk to a historian, if you read a bunch, you'll find an example that's a counter to the one that you're saying. So when you hear that can't happen, that's not realistic. This person would fight. Maybe they would fight, but we're imagining a world of dragons and wizards. So we can imagine a world where that person doesn't fight. Or we can imagine a world where the fight is out of them. Or whatever it is. Whatever it takes to get you to a place where the game is exciting for you and the other players. Think about that. Think about what they want, what the hurdles are to get in the way. Are they getting something when they get it, is that the end of their adventures? Are they done? Or is it just kind of a start of a new adventure? Think about it and keep an eye out for that stuff. It's important, and it can lead to you changing up the way players go after things, and the way that it can break up your patterns. And it can make the game a lot of fun because it feels more real, because it doesn't feel like it's just you as a GM being, having a knee-jerk reaction. So that's what I'm thinking about today. I'm thinking about what the players want, how I can put things in the way of what they want, what the consequences are when they get it, what happens, and how that can make for adventure, right? What is it that the players are looking for? Well, goblins are raiding the town. The players want the town safe so they can get some money. Cool. What happens when the goblins say, hey, we'll leave the town alone. You have to help us knock over this caravan. And the merchant princes from the west, they're scumbags. There's no reason not to hit them. Interesting. Team up with the goblins? Huh. They probably won't. They might not. I don't know. Sometimes I'll do things and have the NPCs make an overture because I'm just not sure what the players are going to do, and I'm curious, right? And I mean, in Burning Wheel, I'm pushing on the beliefs. The characters have beliefs. That's what's really important. But in other games, I might not have that, and I'm just curious. I'm just trying to like gauge the morality of the player characters. And I love asking them why. Hey, why didn't you do that? And it's never what I think, right? The goblins offer the players to hit the caravans. You say, hey, why didn't you do it? And they say, well, the merchant princes are scumbags, but I remember I talked to that one caravan guard and he was really nice and we were going to have to kill those guys. Oh, I didn't even think of that. I forgot about the nice caravan guard you diced with. Little things that make the world real can have a profound effect. And it's all on the player's mind. And it might be stuff that you didn't even remember. Think about what the players want. How do you put things in the way? When do they get it? How do they get it? And how does them getting it lead to more adventure? That's what's on my mind today. I like that stuff. And also, I think it's because I'll put a link in the show notes to the adventures of the Shoeless Peasant, Bina Janos, who in our last adventure got shoes. So we're going to have to rename the adventure. She just hit the wall. Her dice didn't do well. Sean couldn't figure out his way around his problems. He's playing a peasant in kind of a medievalish world, and doors were just slamming in her face left and right. Things that were going well for her in the first adventures were suddenly shutting. And it made me really think about hurdles, how do you and what you do with players. And because sometimes they're just not going to get it. And that's okay. The player wants to be king and someone else wins the throne. Someone else gets there first and gets crowned and has control of the army. It's cool. That's interesting. It's interesting to have to play that moment where it's like, yeah, you need to bow to this. You need to bow to your cousin because they're in charge now. Or you need to run and deal with assassins. Also exciting, right? Having to have dinner with your cousin who just won the throne from you is exciting. It's all exciting. So look for the choices, look for the possibilities. Don't get married to anyone because you never know what the players are going to do, is what I'm thinking about. And be ready to find the adventure in all the possibilities. I feel like that's how we get away from railroading, and that's how we get away from having a world that feels less than real. Getting that verisimilitude, getting those NPCs who feel fleshed out. Good stuff. What do your players want? Does it matter? It might not matter, but it's an interesting question to ask. And it's a good thing to know. And it's a cool thing to think about. All right, hurdles are up, doors are out. Yeah, you can open this, but do you have this key? Are you willing to do what it takes to get the key? Fun stuff. Basic, foundational stuff about our gaming. If you've got ideas or thoughts about, what you do to get in the way of what your players want, or something interesting your players wanted, or something interesting you wanted as one of your characters wanted, drop me a line. Let me know. Let me know how it worked out. Let me know what happens when you gave players everything they wanted. Don't do it so it kills the character, I hope. But anyway, let me know. I want to hear your stories. Drop me a line. Thanks for listening. Hey, Inspiration Goat. What's inspiring this week? Thank you, Inspiration Goat. And this week we've got a game. It's a roguelike called The Caves of Qud. Then Qud is, I'm saying it strange because it's Qud. So it's kind of a strange word. I love it. It is a video game by Freehold Games. And it's a roguelike with kind of old-fashioned graphics. And what I love about it is that there's a basic frame to the world, right? It's the same map. But within that map every game is procedurally generated content, and it's astounding. It's really, really, really cool. Sometimes I die 5 minutes in. Sometimes I play the same character for days. Sometimes I play the same character for hours. I can put it back and come back, and it's always fresh and new to me. And that's because within this kind of post-apocalyptic Gamma World-inspired game, is the content is always procedurally generated, right? So there's always going to be the Sea of Silt, this huge sprawling desert on the western side of the map. But what's in the Sea of Silt, where the villages are, where the ruins are, where the rust bogs are, where the slime bogs are, all of those things are going to always be different. And it's fascinating. And it fascinates. The procedurally generated content is really interesting to me because it reminds me of random generated tables. And I wonder if random generated tables get a bad rap for two reasons. I wonder if random generated tables get a bad rap because they're used poorly and they're made poorly, and then people have a bad feeling about them, right? And the word of how it's described, randomly generated. Is it really randomly generated, right? I mean, the Caves of Kut is a great example, right? It's random, but it's so strange and alien that it feels like there's some weird logic behind it all, right? And what I like about the randomly generated stuff is it creates things and puts things next to each other that we would have never put together otherwise. And that's a lot of fun. And that's, I think, the cool thing about any kind of randomly generated content is that it throws things together in ways that we have to try to make sense of. And because, humans try to make patterns out of things, we're pretty good at that, right? We see something with two dots over a line and we're like, oh, it's a face. The two dots are eyes and the line is a mouth. So we're pretty good at that. We're pretty good at making sense of things as we go. And Caves of Kut is an amazing example of that. The characters you play, you can build things, you can take things apart, you can make things better, you can sharpen things, get new skills. It's all very D&D-ish. 5 minutes of playing and you're gonna get it. But it's very difficult. It's very challenging. I lost a 17th level character recently. And that's a lot of hours of effort. And just made a bad decision. Made a bad decision in the wrong part of the dungeon. And a couple of monsters that didn't look that tough just railed against me. And I had all the tools I needed, right? I just didn't use them. And so that's on me. But I think there's an interesting aspect to all of that. And I think Caves of Kut is gonna make you think about your tabletop games in a new way. It's going to make you think about roguelikes in a new way. I feel like roguelikes have a lot to do with gaming and death, and it really makes me think about it all. So yeah, Caves of Kut is rocking my world, and it's getting and that procedurally generated content. I can't put that away. That's something that I want to see more at my table. I'm fascinated. I want to see an app where I can just plug a bunch of keywords in, right? And then I hit a button and it makes a world. We could do a whole bunch of stuff with it. You can make a world with it. You could make random encounter tables. You could make a pantheon. You could make whatever. So I think this stuff's got legs. It's out there for tabletop. Already there are already really cool randomly generated table stuff. But I'm wondering, as it gets automated and it's less labor time to have to roll it, how much easier it's going to get. It's good stuff. Caves of Kut, really inspiring, strange, alien, beautiful content. I can't say enough good things about it. Very Gamma World inspired, kind of gonzo. You can make friends with a bear if you want, have them travel around, arm the bear, give the bear a shotgun, walk into the wrong part of a battle, the bear shoots you in the back and kills you. It was an accident, but you're the one who gave a bear a shotgun. What were you thinking? These are the kind of situations that come up, and I like it. I like it a lot, and I hope you'll like it too. If you play, let me know how it is. If there's a game out there that inspires your tabletop playing, let me know what it is too. I've toyed around with some modern, Skyrim and all that. Like I've just gone to friends' houses and played on the joystick a little bit, but not too much. So, if you've got more modern choices or more old school choices, let me know. I don't play video games that often, so I'm curious to hear what you think. And thank you for sitting with me, talking about what players want in the Caves of Kut. Thank you, Inspiration Goat, for bringing me a good one. And next week, I hear we're gonna have a game that the Inspiration Goat has kind of leaked what they're thinking of. It's going to be a game, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. So I'll see you in a week. I hope your week is going well. I've already got a Wednesday call-in show almost prepped. So Wednesday you'll be getting something from me on the Anchor app and wherever you're listening to this. And if you have more comments, drop them. And if I can, I will answer them, and they will go on a future Wednesday show. Sunday is daydreaming about dragons, and then I think Wednesdays are more daydreaming with dragons, because y'all are the dragons. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next week. Hold on tight.